Hello, guys. It's Juliette Hahn with Your Next Stop. You know, I say this every single time, but I am so excited to have my guest, Katie Brinkley. And if you guys, when you're watching the video, you see my face. Hey, Katie, how are you?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. It's just like seeing an old friend because we got to meet each other on social audio and then we got to meet in real life. And now here we are again.
I know it's so crazy. So, guys, I know you're like listening and being like, okay, I hear their excitement. I want to kind of introduce Katie. And I know you heard it in my intro, but I want to do it again. So, Katie is doing some really, really cool stuff. So, her company is Next Step Social Communications, not Next Stop, but I love how we kind of have the synergy there. She spends a ton of time on LinkedIn at Katie Brinkley. She is also on Instagram. I am Katie Brinkley, which again is just like I am Juliette Hahn. That's why we totally get along. But Katie, I have to like kind of preface. So we met on Clubhouse.
Hmm.
I mean, has it been 2 years, a year and a
Yeah.
half? I mean,
Wow.
that's where we started, where we met. And Katie has this really cool thing where she has this branding and she's going to get into her whole business and what she does. Cause she also has two podcasts, by the way, Across the Pond, where we met on Fireside, and then NFT Ninja. So when we met at Podfest, that is, you guys might be like, oh, wait, I know who Katie Brinkley is. I heard a little bit about her. She's the one that had the hat, right? So when we were on the floor at Podfest, I was like, I know that hat. Oh my gosh. And I think I like tapped you on the shoulder and I was like, is this Katie? And you were like, oh my God, is this Juliette? So that's where we like got to see each other in person, which was so fun. We were both speaking, but when we saw each other at Podfest, it was like old friends. I mean, it was really, really cool, right?
Well, and it just goes to say the power of social media, of the power of audio. I mean, like you said, we met on Clubhouse. We got to know each other a little bit by showing up to each other's shows over on Fireside. But the power of just talking to someone and seeing that little avatar pop up, it can have huge benefits for you in your relationships and your networking and in your business. So show your face, people. Show your face on Instagram, show your face on camera as much as you can. But social media is an incredible tool when you decide to embrace it for your business.
So true. And the other thing is that we really, we talk about, and everyone knows that listens to my podcast, is the power of storytelling. So when we met, I heard your story. It connected us even more about what you're doing, your mission, your passion, that you're a mom, but that you're in the podcasting world. But I want to get into kind of, because what I love so much is also your backstory, what you did in college and out of college, because that also really connected us. So give us a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, where you went to university, and those early days, being a broadcaster on the radio.
Yeah, you gave away the big reveal there, Juliette. But
Well,
yeah,
I didn't say what you did. I didn't say what you did because that's the big reveal.
well, and that was the thing. So I am in podcasting now. I actually have three podcasts. It's starting to turn into a problem. But I,
And I said
I
two. Oh my gosh.
I know. It's starting to turn into a bad problem of just talking into this microphone all the time. But I love radio. As a kid, I'm an only child. And as a kid, you get really creative and have a very vivid imagination when you're an only child. So my parents bought me my first microphone when I was maybe 10 years old. And I would sit in my room with cassette tapes and my microphone and I would do little radio shows. I would play some music and then I'd go in and DJ. I even created commercials. And
I love that.
that was what I would do after school, hanging out, in the wintertime here in Colorado. But I also played softball, just about every sport that you can imagine. I played, and softball was my main sport. I played it competitively for about a decade, and I drove all over Denver to play these games, all over the state of Colorado, actually. And when I would be in the car, my dad loved talk radio, and he loved listening to this station called 850 KOA, and they had a show on in the afternoons called the Sports Zoo. And on the Sports Zoo,
I love that.
there was two men talking sports, and then every top of the hour, this woman would come on, and she would talk about like just the breaking news of the Colorado Rockies won today. Not like the big headlines. She would just give the full update of what's happening. And her name is Susie Wargin. She was called the Sports Chick. And I just thought it was so cool to hear this woman talking sports on the radio, because really it wasn't happening. There wasn't women talking about football. I love
Right.
football. I loved playing sports. I loved the Avalanche. I loved the Broncos. And just because I was a girl didn't mean that I, didn't like those sports. So I loved hearing her top of the hour updates. And I was like, that's what I want to be someday. So fast forward, I went to college. I played collegiate softball, and I also worked at the college radio station. And but that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And while I was at the station, this thing called MySpace came out. And with MySpace, we had to get bands to send us their music for free. So for free of royalties. So you had to find a lot of unknown musicians. And so I went all in on MySpace. That was my first taste of social media. So finding bands, finding music for free at the college radio station, landed my dream job right out of college. I actually worked directly with Susie Wargin. She was my mentor.
Oh my God, that's
So
so
cool.
cool.
I mean, like, and it's still great because she and I still talk today.
Oh my God,
But
that's incredible.
it was absolutely incredible because I remember being like, holy cow, I get to work directly underneath you. Like, you're going to be telling me what to do. This is amazing because I've looked up to you since I was, 13 years old. But I landed my dream job right out of college. So I was a post-game reporter for the Denver Broncos, Colorado Rockies, Colorado Avalanche, and Denver Nuggets at 850 KOA. And I got to work directly with, my idol, Susie Wargin, for a few years before she moved off into TV. But that's my backstory as to how I got involved in radio, and a little teaser of how I got involved with social media.
No, and I love that. So, I mean, my first question is, what did your dad think of all of this?
Oh, he's so proud. I mean, like, he's still like today, even today, he's like, Katie, you could be doing that. Like, we'll be watching a game or whatever, and Lisa Salters or whatever is on the side. He's like, hey, that could be you. And I was like, I kind of missed the boat on that now, Dad. I've
Or you pivoted,
moved
right?
career paths. Yes, I pivoted exactly.
You
Look at
did.
us. Yeah.
But I
Living the dream
love the
for sure.
fact that, right, totally. But I love the fact, and this is what, I want the listeners to take away, that because a lot of times we don't go back to when we were little and what our dreams were when we were little. We don't think about that, whether they were good or bad. And this is where, I love connecting the dots to that. And you are so, I mean, you're an expert in doing that as well. And that's why this is so fun for me. But the fact that that was something that was a dream of yours and you went after that dream. And so that's what I want the listeners to hear. If you have a dream, just like think about that little kid where you were and the fact that you painted that picture so well, that you sat with your dad, in the car and to these games. And I love, we have the love for sports, playing at that high level, that you were like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my dream. And I have kids now that are, we're traveling all over. And I think, oh, I hope they pull something out of like when we were in the car, right? Because we spend so much time with our kids there, especially when they're in the travel sport. So I think that's so fun that it was like, this is what I want to do. It's a dream, but you put that into action. And that's what's so important. Like, you had that dream and you're like, I'm just not going to let it be a dream. I'm going to see what happens. I want to make this reality. So I love how you did that little tease. Clearly, I mean, you're so awesome about the MySpace. So then take us into this next journey, how you created your business. And
Yeah, well, like I said with Susie, she was my mentor for about 3 years. I worked at the station for 4 years, and the last year, this thing called Sirius XM came out, and everyone in the radio industry went, "This is the end!" Like, comets falling from the sky and buildings falling over. I mean, like, it was, we all freaked out, and
right.
I had zero TV experience. I do not feel comfortable on camera. I feel like I blink a lot, and I get all sweaty and nervous. I didn't have any camera or TV experience. All of my experience in college was radio, and that's what I always wanted to do. Was always radio.
Right.
So Susie was a very well-known name, still is a very well-known name here in Denver. She actually has now transitioned back to radio and is the sideline reporter for the Broncos again. But she moved over to TV. And so I was like, okay, she's moving to TV. This guy's leaving the station and he's moving to LA for, like, everyone was pivoting.
Right.
and making new choices and finding new opportunities. And I remember there was another announcer at the station, and he said, "Katie, you know, I just don't see this really being good for radio. I mean, like, you're young. I would try and get out." And I was like, okay, everyone else is doing that. Everyone else is doing it. I'll do it too. So I actually I moved into marketing. And at the time, you know, like looking back, it's one of the things where I'm like, I wish I would have just stuck it out. I mean, but I didn't know. I was like, okay, well, I'll either try and find a full-time radio job, because what I was doing was part-time. I'll either try and find a full-time radio job, or I will just see what else I can find. And so I moved into marketing, and I was the marketing manager for the Colorado Rockies TV station. So I was doing their script writing, their media buys, and I was also doing their social media. So I said earlier, when I was working at the college radio station, we had to get bands to send us the music for free. And everyone at the time was writing these handwritten notes. And I was like, oh, this seems like a giant time suck. So
Right.
I went on to MySpace and I started connecting with bands. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'll make the connections for you at these different radio stations, because I worked at the radio station in Denver. And I was like, I'll make these different connections for you. If you give me some, and I'll help you with your MySpace. If you send me some free merch, or next time you're in Denver, just get me some backstage tickets. So I was
Right.
doing this on the side, because being a
So
social media
smart.
anything didn't exist. And so
Right.
I did that for a while. And then this thing, Facebook, came out. So I worked with local businesses, like the local coffee shop. I was like, you want me to get your business on Facebook? Just give me some free coffee. And I was always trying to see, like, hey, how can I help these different businesses and still kind of help myself out too? And
Right.
learning about all these social media platforms as they were evolving and as they were coming out. So when I got the job at the TV station, we really didn't have a social media presence. I think we had a Facebook page, but there wasn't anything posted there. There really wasn't anything being published, or any ads for sure. And I got the TV station on Facebook and Instagram. We started doing Twitter Tuesdays, where like different athletes would come in and take over the Twitter handle. And I absolutely loved what I did at the station. And then I got laid off. So that was the
Well, so
next
how,
pivot.
right. So how many years was that? Because now that's people do that all the time, right? They have people take over their accounts. And so you were
Mm-hmm.
doing that way before. What do you
Yep.
remember, like what year that was?
Oh man. Well, for this TV station, or for like all these other little small mom and pop shops. I mean, so I was just doing those on the side, like in
Right.
addition to. So I did that for probably about 8 years. Just you know, hey, why aren't we posting on social media? And they're like, oh well, because you know, I don't have time for it or whatever. I'm like, well, I'll do it for you. Just, you know, hook a girl up.
Right. Which is so smart, but it is. And, people that listen to the show know that I, truly believe we all have a path. And, you said something, and I know we've talked in the past, you said there's been times where I wish I just stuck it out, but it's so interesting how everything is coming sort of full circle. I mean, the fact that, as you said, and that like Susie is back on the radio, which is
Mm-hmm.
again for her full circle. So I do want to bring it back just for that for a second, because I didn't ask that question when you were talking, but it keeps repeating in my mind. What was one of the biggest lessons that you learned from Susie that you kind of took away throughout your journey?
That for women, it is a little bit harder in the sports industry, and honestly in the business world. There was a lot of things. I remember I was the only this back in my day. I was the only girl in the locker room. I really was. I was
Right.
the only girl in the locker room, and I remember she told me, like, hey, so you're probably going to be the only girl in there, and these athletes, these players, they're just going to be going about their business because they're used to men being in there. So don't, you're just going to have to look up. But I mean, like,
to say it nicely enough, right?
to say it nicely. But I mean, like, there was a lot of things where I do feel that it was great to be the only woman in the room for a lot of these opportunities. But also at that time, I feel like my questions had to be a little bit better. My questions had to be a little bit more thought out. I had to really sit and so at the Rockies games, a lot of the other post-game reporters would show up in the 8th inning, look at the, oh, okay, so so-and-so had, 4 hits and da, 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 da. Okay, I'm going to go talk to him. I'd go to the whole game. I'd actually keep score. I'd take notes as to like, okay, so he was swinging like, because it shows you like, okay, there's sliders. He got a bunch of sliders and that's the one that he hit, like, okay, so the slider came in. Why, when that slider came in the third inning. So I made sure that I was really crafting my messages or my questions throughout the entire game. Whereas a lot of the other,
Right.
reporters that would come in just kind of would come in and their questions were good and they didn't have to worry about it. Where I always felt being in that locker room, I was having to okay, I have to make sure that this is good so that I prove that I'm worth it to be here. I deserve to
Right.
be here. And that was something that she was like, you're going to have to make sure that you show that you deserve to be there in these situations, because no offense, but nobody wants a girl there.
Right. And when there's one beautiful thing that probably came out of that as well, because you could have had a mentor, right? You listened to her on the radio. You could have had a mentor that wasn't willing to teach and help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or a mentor, and I like someone that you idolize and you're like, that's what I want to do. It
Yeah,
could
she
have
could have
been
seen me as competition. She could have been like,
a
I'm not
hundred
going to help
percent.
you. Yeah.
But the fact that she did just shows obviously what a beautiful soul she is and how good she is in her business, that she stayed in that business, right? So she knew, okay, this is what you need to do. But she pivoted when radio happened. She happened to be in it for a little bit longer. So she was able to get a couple steps up. But you pivoted and you took this journey and it's like, okay, let me kind of go down this path and see what that's happening. And then you created your agency. I mean, take us through
Yeah.
a little bit about how that came about. So I love that you were kind of always obviously a forward thinker. You were always seeing the bigger picture. And that's what I love. And not saying that men are not, because there's men that definitely see bigger pictures. But I think a lot of times when I'm speaking to women on this podcast in this situation, that's one thing that's kind of comes over and over again. We're bigger thinkers. We see ahead and we're not just thinking about the now. So when you were reaching out to these businesses, obviously you weren't thinking, oh, I'm going to start a social media company, but how did that start? And you've been doing it now for many, many years.
I know. I always feel really old when I say I've been doing this whole social media thing for 18 years now. But I worked I worked at the TV station, and I had another great mentor there, and her name is Jen, and she was the marketing director, and I was the marketing manager. So we worked really closely together. And really, anything that I would present to her, she'd say, "Yeah, let's give it a try." Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd say, hey, I think that we should maybe try doing some Facebook ads. I know that we're doing these media buys with billboards and stuff. Let's just try some Facebook ads and see how they do. She's like, sure, if you think it's a good idea, let's go for it. So she always was very supportive in
Mm-hmm.
any sort of things I wanted to just try and experiment with on the social media side of things. And I'll never forget, I was in her office. It was around maybe like October. Yeah, probably October of 2016. And we were sitting in her office going over benefits. Like, hey, which benefit package are you going to sign up for? So it was around that time of year.
Right.
And her boss came in and grabbed her, and she was like, "Oh, come grab you later, Katie. I'll talk to you later." And then all of a sudden, her boss came and grabbed me, and I was like, "Oh, hey!" And he laid me off, and I was like, what do you mean?"
Oh,
He's like, well, with the merger, so the TV station was being acquired. He's like, with the merger, all marketing managers are going to be based out of Atlanta now. And I was like, I know nothing about telecom. I know nothing. I know how to like write scripts and do media buys and do social media. I don't know anything about that side of marketing. It's completely, and I'm not moving to Atlanta. So they're like, oh,
right.
you can choose to be laid off then. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing.
Right.
And so about the next week, I had, I think, 3 weeks that I could continue like passing off like my duties or whatever. And I was sitting in Jen's office and I was like, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And she said, well, Katie, you're so good at social media, the stuff that you've done with the station and the way that you've experimented with things and the way that you've really grown our presence. I'd love to see you do something with social media. And I would just love to see you find a way to get back into radio some way. And I left her office and I was like, why not? She's right. I am really good at social media.
Right.
That's my favorite part of my job. So when I had my final day there, I actually got my very first client. I got it off of Upwork, and I just was doing her social media. And I was like, well, I'm just going to see how this goes, because social media is the main job. 6 years ago, that it still was not just a main job. If it was like an entry level position, which I was beyond that phase of my
Right.
life. And so I was like, well, let's just see what I can do. And it's been 6 years now, almost 7. Wait, yeah, 2016. Yeah, 6 years. And I absolutely love what I do. And I've found a way to kind of get back into radio with the podcasts. And I love what I'm doing. And I honestly, if I didn't have Susie, in the first phase of my career, if I didn't have Jen just giving me the idea and the confidence of being like,
Right.
let's just see if I can do it. Because I was trying to find different corporate jobs. But she was like, I would just love to see if you find a job where that's all you do. Those words really hit home to me. And I was like, why not? Why not? Let's just see how this goes. And now I have my agency, and like I said, I absolutely love what I do every day.
Well, and I think that's so cool. And that's, again, a message that not all of us think about and not all of us get, because not everyone gets a mentor that helps them. Not everyone gets a boss that's like, oh, let me be positive and let me see this person grow. I mean, I've had so many people on this show that it was complete opposite, right? They had bosses that were jealous of them or were nervous that they were going to take their place. But it's also what you put out, your energy, the way you are. And I mean, we connected so quickly because you could just feel the love and the compassion that you have and the curiosity. Like, that really comes across. And so what you're doing, you're going to get clients because they're okay, you know what? You're an expert in this field, but you're also a comfortable person. And I can see that you want me to succeed. It's not just a paycheck. And that comes across very much with you, that it's not about a paycheck. You're happy to help that next person get to where you are and even above. I could see you being a cheerleader on the side. So when people when people have a boss that is someone that kind of gives them that confidence, sometimes we take it for granted. And I want people to listen. Don't take it for granted. Don't take that support system that you have, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a best friend, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a boss. Don't take that person for granted. Look for them to help you grow as a person and in your business, because it really can happen. So 6 years. I mean, so you started with that first client. How fast did the business grow, or was it a slow go?
It was a slow go, because right after I got laid off, I found out I was pregnant with my second daughter. I was like, well, it's a good thing I decided to do this whole social media thing by myself for a bit, because I don't know who'd want to hire me now. Like, thanks for hiring me. By the way, I'm pregnant.
Right.
So it was a slow go. Honestly, it was the pandemic that I really decided to take my business and see where it could go, because I was a solopreneur. It was just me doing all the things. I mean, I was even building websites for a while. So
Right.
I was doing all the things, and it was around March of 2020. I went to Social Media Marketing World, and I was like, I've wanted a podcast forever. Why am I not doing it? Is it because I don't own a microphone? Like, it's not that hard to order a microphone off of Amazon. So I really just took that time after I came back from Social Media Marketing World and was like, if this is what I want to do, I need to take the leap. I just need to just go for it. I'm making money. I've got a consistent clients, but I can't grow unless I hire somebody else. And so,
Mm-hmm.
which is scary. I think hiring your first employee is absolutely one of the scariest things. It's like, okay, well, how am I going to afford to pay for them if this client goes away?
Right.
And so I really started to go agency mode in April of 2020. I launched my podcast, Rocky Mountain Marketing. I hired my assistant a few months later. I started contracting out the podcast production. Then, I mean, like, all these things started happening. And so it's honestly been only about 2.5 years that I've had the agency side of the business, where now I have a copywriter, I have a designer, I have my assistants, I have a brand strategist, I have a website person, all of these people coming in for the agency side. And then allows me to do things like have 3 podcasts. I speak at different events, like wherever you and I connected. I speak
Yes.
at different events now. I offer one-on-one coaching and consulting for teams now, because I have the rest of my business built. But there's no way I could have left the TV station and gone into the mode I am now. The steps and the things that I've learned along the way absolutely have helped me grow my business. I feel the right way.
Right. I love that. And I totally apologize that I forgot Rocky Mountain Marketing in your podcast, because that was your first podcast.
It's my solo podcast. The other two are I'm co-host on. So, but I
Right.
mean, like you and I connected because of Across the Pond NFL, because it's NFL, of course. So
We did. We totally
but
did.
yeah, so I mean, like that's the very first podcast I launched. And man, if you want to listen to some terrible podcasting, go back and listen to the first few episodes of those. But that's the thing. I sometimes I will listen to like episode 3 and I'm like, oh my goodness, you can tell how nervous I was. You can tell. And now I listen, I'm like, oh man, I love seeing the growth of really of me and my business journey and my professional journey.
Well, and that's what's so cool. And that is it's so exciting. And I think what holds people back is the fear of, oh, I'm going to be terrible in the beginning. And you clearly, and this is going to be a second question, but you clearly got that confidence through your upbringing. And then as you entered the business world, people saw where your abilities were, what your God-given, strengths are, what you are meant to be doing in this world, and kind of helped you be like, no, here's the push. You can do this. You can do this. So I think it's so awesome when you talk to an entrepreneur like yourself and you feel that fearlessness. And I know you're going to be like, oh no, there's a lot of fear. And so I don't mean that you had
imposter syndrome happens on a regular basis for
right.
this girl right here. And I think it happens. I think it's good. I think it's good to have
Totally.
imposter syndrome because it allows you to keep yourself in check.
It does. But the fact that you get past it, because people will let that hold them up and they never get to that next step, that next stop, whatever you want to say. Ding, ding, ding. But they never do because they let that fear, imposter syndrome set in. So do you feel that your upbringing, your parents really gave you that confidence? Were you born with it? Like, did your parents ever say, oh, you were just born with it? My parents always tell me, they're like, oh my gosh, you came out confident and we couldn't hinder. There was times you probably shouldn't have been so confident, but you were just going there.
I do think that sports had a big impact on my life. I think that regardless of what sport it is, I think that there's something to be said about the mindset you need to have when you play sports, whether it's a team sport or, an individual sport like swimming or golf or whatever. And you can argue that those are team sports in a way. But I mean, the mindset that you need to have, you need to believe in yourself. And if you just softball, you go up to the plate saying, oh my God, I'm going to strike out. I haven't been able to hit this girl all day. I am going to go up to the plate and I'm going to strike out. What's going to happen? You're going to strike out. You need to believe in yourself and have a very short memory so that I struck out last 2 times. This is the time. Now I know what she's going to be feeding me. I've got, all of that I think really helps it. And it's interesting too, because I actually worked with a mindset coach and I was like, goodness gracious, I've played sports my whole life. Why? I should have a great mindset. I should know how to reapproach myself when I'm feeling down or I'm feeling overwhelmed. But side note, I'm a huge fan of coaches, regardless in your life, like whether it's mindset or sales or social media or whatever. I think coaches can absolutely help you with your business. And I think that mindset is huge. And sports really helped my confidence because I was always trying to keep myself elevated so that I could help my team and so that I could be a better player. I wanted to, I caught 500 fly balls every day after school. My dad would take me out to the park and hit me 500 fly balls because for a while there I had a spring in my glove. 500 fly balls every day, and it was a lot of work, but I became a really good outfielder because of all that repetition. And if I would have just said, oh, I'm not any good at this, I can't catch the ball, and I would have given up, who knows what my life path would have been. I definitely would have been playing collegiate softball. but you have to believe in yourself. And I think that sports is a great way to build that confidence.
I do too. And there's going to be the person that's listening to this saying, well, I'm not athletic or I don't like sports, but there's so many different things. I was actually just talking to a woman that's a neighbor. I was out in the street yesterday saying hi to a neighbor, and this woman came up, and our kids happened to be in school at the same time. And so I said, oh, I don't know if I know, do they any play sports? And she, no, they don't. Well, my son is a triathlete. And I said, well, okay, he doesn't play school sports.
Yeah.
But okay,
Yeah.
so maybe I should, and I don't preference by saying to people, is your child an athlete? The only reason why I say, do they play sports is because then I know, wait, I do know them, or, one of my children's going to know them. But you could tell she had this little bit of a chip on her shoulder, like, oh, you're going to be that mom that's going to ask, that. But then when
Yeah.
she said that, she goes, oh, I guess you're right. And she goes, yeah, he's ridden his bike like 100 miles. And I said, yeah, so he doesn't do school sports, but he's an athlete. I said, so I don't know that, maybe our kids have had classes. I said,
Yeah.
and when I said that, she's like, thank you for changing that wording, because I should say, no, he doesn't play sports, but he's an athlete. And it doesn't matter if you're not an athlete, if you're not into sports, there's things that you could do in your life, just like, as you said, with the mindset stuff, is go out of your comfort zone to do things. And that's what's so important. When you go up to bat every time, it's out of your comfort zone, whether you're, the best hitter, the best catcher, it doesn't matter. When I played sports, it's the same sort of thing. I realized, okay, my speed, I might not be the best, stick skills. I might not be the best this, but I am fast and I will get every ball before everyone else, because that was my gift. And I knew that, and I was confident about it. It didn't mean that every time a ball, for field hockey or lacrosse went out and I knew I was running, because there's girls that were faster than me. But I knew that if I put that hustle and that grit and that grind, that was going to take me to a different place. Like, she might be faster than me, or she might have better stick skills than me, but I'm going to outwit her because I'm going to get every ground ball. And that's what I used to do in lacrosse. I used to just practice the ground balls because I knew I was gritty and I could get in there. So I think that is so important for anyone to think about that. And I love that sports did that for you, because it 100% did it for me. And I see it doing it for my kids now. And I think it is such an important thing, whether you're the best on the field, the worst on the field, just go out and try it, because it's out of your comfort zone. When you go out of your comfort zone is when you learn. And I say that all the time to so many people that just stay. When you stay in your comfort zone, there's no growing.
So true. And I know we're getting close to the end of the episode here, but I do just want to say, like, based off of where we're at with the conversation right now, my daughter, Evelyn, she's 8, and zero interest in the sport of baseball or softball up until about 6 weeks ago. I mean, really could have cared less. And we got my younger daughter, Vivian, a tee with a bat for her birthday, because she actually was expressing an interest in it. Well, Evie started playing now, like every day. She was like, let's go play catch. Can you buy me a glove? Like, was all about it. So I signed her up for a softball league. And unfortunately, there's not a ton of beginner leagues for 8-year-olds. I mean, like, at 8 years old, for crying out loud, it's competitive. And so I was like, well,
Right.
she wants to play softball. I'll sign her up for this league and we'll just see what she thinks. Well, she went there. And I mean, the very first time that she went to the practice, she stood on home plate. So, I mean, like, that just goes to show you, like, what her understanding of the game, like to swing the ball, or just swing the bat.
Right.
And so that's where she was. They're coming up to the final week of softball right now. And last week, she asked the coach, hey, can I try playing third base? Can I try playing pitcher? And the pitch, I mean, it's coach pitch still, but the pitcher, you stand right next to the pitcher. She's like, can I try playing pitcher? She's absolutely embraced the sport. And I remember at that first practice, after she stood on, home plate, and all the other girls had played before, knew what they were doing, and could throw the ball. She came over to me and she goes, Mom, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this anymore. And I said, let's just finish out the practice this week. If you don't like it, we don't ever have to do it again. And just seeing the growth and the confidence that she's had. I mean, she's still not the best player on the team, but she is out there, like, throwing the ball like up in the air, trying to catch it. She's next to the, asking the coach, can I try playing pitcher? And the confidence I've seen in her while playing this sport has been awesome, because she's a very shy girl. She's not like her mom at all. She's very shy. She is the last one, she'll raise her hand. No one saw me. Okay, I'll just be quiet and kind of back away. but it's brought out a whole different side of her. So I do think that no matter, with sports, you don't need to be the best player on the field, but when you have sports around you and that team environment, it really can help your confidence grow, and it can help you, as a person, be willing to raise your hand and be willing to speak up.
I love that. Oh my God, I love that story so much because it is so true. When you see a kid, my daughter was the same, and I know we're coming to the end here as well, but she started lacrosse late. Even though I played in college, she was a gymnast. That's what she wanted to do forever. But she did start it. And I remember the first practice, I forgot to get her cleats because she was a gymnast, even though the boys, I mean, had tons of cleats. I was like, oh crap, honey, I don't have cleats for you. And she's like, I'm going to wear these. And she had leggings or like jeggings. And we like went up to the coach, and the coach was like, oh, hi, thinking, and these girls have been playing since kindergarten. She was starting in fourth grade. And the coach was like, okay. And I could see her. And I'm like, listen, I actually played. I just want to preface that she's a gymnast. She's going to be fine. I totally dropped the ball in all of this because I was like, oh, wait, crap. I need stuff for you that I didn't even think about. And she is now on a travel team blowing the world up. And it's like the growth that she did. But I remember she came home that first day and she was like, oh my gosh, mom, these girls are really, really good. And I'm like, they've been playing for a long time. Like, this is going to be uncomfortable. But she's like, no, but I really like the coach and I want to continue. And it just is, as you said, it's a really important thing because it gives that child the confidence to know they can do something. She might have turned around in 3 weeks and said, no, no, thank you. I don't want to do it. But I was the same. I'm like, you got to finish this, finish this out, and then we'll see where it goes. So Katie, I love, again, everything that you're doing. We will be having Katie on Fireside. So you guys, and it will be sooner than later, to, even to dive into more what she does for her clients, more about what her podcast is about. And maybe she'll even have a fifth podcast by the time we have her on Fireside.
Then I have a problem. Then we have to actually like sit me down and say, Katie, you have a problem with podcasting. This is an intervention. You need to take a step back from the microphone.
Well, I don't know if I'm the correct person because I'm always constantly talking to people about starting new shows. So I am definitely not the person to start that intervention. But Katie Brinkley, thank you so much for joining Your Next Stop. And you guys, you know what to do. Like, rate, review. And you might be listening to this episode and saying, oh, this is really cool, but not thinking that it can fit into your life. But there's people in your life that need to hear this. They need to hear where Katie went in her life, where she pivoted, because they might be in a spot in their life right now where they're in crossroads. And this story will help because what do I say every single time? Stories connect us. Stories make us better people when we listen to someone's story. So we will see you guys next week with Your Next Stop. Thank you again so much, Katie. Okay. So when you were looking down, do you have that soundboard where the sound's okay and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking down at the